Despacito, quiero respirar tu cuello despacito. Deja que te diga cosas al oído, para que te acuerdes si no estás conmigo.
Welcome everyone, it's Jack Rico, and thanks for listening to episode 41 of the Highly Relevant Podcast. If you are a first-time listener to this U.S. Latino pop culture show, then welcome, bienvenidos. That was obviously Despacito. If you haven't heard the song, then I don't know what planet you're living on. The song is now the most streamed song in the history of music. I have senior media reporter from the New York Post, Claire Atkinson, who's on the phone today with me, who wrote about it in the paper just to break down for me how the song became that big and how much money she thinks Bieber made from the summer hit. Also on the show, I talked to Colombian director Tomas Reyes, who did an English language documentary about healthy living. It's called Beyond Food. It's number 5 right now on iTunes. And as soon as I saw it, I'm not going to lie, I felt extremely guilty, about the way I was carrying my own lifestyle, what I was eating. I just wasn't working out as much. And this is the movie, the documentary that literally inspired me to kind of just get off my ass and start walking, start getting some sun, and stop working so much, to be quite honest with you. But before we talk Despacito, there's all sorts of news that came out of this week. The San Diego Comic-Con kicked off this week, and word is that Netflix and HBO are going to be making their presence felt. Spielberg, who rarely goes to a Comic-Con convention, is coming out to promote his new film, Ready Player One. If you haven't heard about the film, it's really about a virtual reality game based on a novel. Also, the cast of Blade Runner 2049 is going to be on hand, so you can expect Ryan Gosling, Harrison Ford to be there. The Justice League is also going to be making their presence felt. They'll be there. Obviously, the big draw is going to be Ben Affleck. I'm not sure if you've heard about what's been going on with Ben. Ben had to somehow retire or just leave a project that he already had committed to for the reasons of wellness and to spend more time with his family. If you've been seeing him, he doesn't look like Batman at all. He looks like he's going through something. But besides that, PBS is going to be broadcasting nationally the 30th Annual Hispanic Heritage Awards October 6th. I don't even think I've seen one show. Guillermo del Toro has released a new trailer for his new movie, The Shape of Water. It's a fantasy romance. Think Amelie, but as a thriller. That's what this movie feels like. Also, Dominican novelist Junot Diaz has a new book out, but it's not a novel. It's a picture book. It's a picture book called Island Born. It's only 48 pages. And I believe it's been 10 years since he's put out anything. And so for him to come out with a picture book is a bit bizarre. But then again, bizarre is the fact that I haven't read The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde yet. I know, don't kill me. I'll do it at some point. There's also a new Latina princess on Disney's Once Upon a Time on ABC. And she's La Dominicana Dania Ramirez. I'm not sure if you've seen her. She's been on NBC's Heroes. She's also been on The Sopranos. So great to have a first live-action Latina that Disney puts out. And in my mind, this is the craziest story of them all. Latina Magazine hasn't paid their employees in nearly a month, according to a report that I saw in the New York Post. From what I read, their president quit, and these new presidents that took over aren't even guaranteeing to pay their employees the full amount. This is terrible news for Latin magazines and Latin websites. I mean, seriously. They're like an extinct species at the moment. There's rarely any left. I think that the future of these Latin websites is that they're all going to be rolled up into one and included into their general American mainstream news platforms. Like, for example, Huffington Post Voices will probably be a part of just Huffington Post. They're going to get rid of these, verticals. All that's going to go. It's all going to be wrapped up into one website where you're going to be getting stories from the gay community, stories from the Asian community, stories from the black community, stories from the Latino community. And I think that's going to be sort of the way things are going to head down into the future. Let's see. I might be wrong. But on a side note, O.J. Simpson was released from jail after 8 years. The media has been trying to make this an obsession again. I don't think it's going to work. At least I won't buy it. I'm not jumping into that rabbit hole at all. It is interesting to know that supposedly he's moving to Florida so he can keep his $300,000 pension. How is he even getting that money? It's interesting. The whole thing's interesting. But I begin with my interview with Tomas Reyes and his health documentary, Beyond Food. It's one of the most neutral food and health docs I've seen so far. You know how most food docs do a great expose on the American health system, et cetera, et cetera? Well, this one is really just about enlightening people. And they break it down into three main factors that we should all be doing right now.
We traveled all over the U.S. on a mission to interview a group of extraordinary people, brave pioneers challenging mainstream health advice, and sat with them for in-depth interviews. We personally knew this journey would change us, but we never imagined the degree to which our lives would improve.
Without further ado, Tomás, thanks for being on the Highly Relevant podcast.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks for having me.
So it sounds like you're in LA. I hear the birds chirping, so you must be in a very zenful, peaceful place. Explain to me how you and your co-director, Juan Carlos Paredes, decided to go on a journey, on this odyssey of talking about food. Well, not even food, but sort of like a lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle that is broken down into many things that you have here: biohacking, living food, wild, etc. Why did you decide? Why did two Latinos decide to create a documentary in English for everyone about this subject matter?
Yeah, well, I moved to New York in 2009 from Tokyo, and I put on about 20 pounds in the first year. And I was wondering why, Of course, the portions in the U.S. are a little bigger than in Japan.
Mm-hmm. It's the capital of processed foods.
Yeah, and I put on a ton of weight, and I started doing research on food and health, and I started juicing, and I almost considered becoming vegan. It didn't work for me. I tried for a few days, but I was like,
why didn't it work for you?
Because, I didn't know, I didn't have enough knowledge. I've been cooking since I'm 8 years old, but I haven't really, I hadn't done enough research. And I started doing research and reading this guy's book and this other book. I read Rich Roll's Finding Ultra, and I was doing all this other research. And then I talked to Juan, and Juan was here in LA, and he was also doing a bunch of research on health, on ultimate health and biohacking. And we were like, oh my God, we need to do something about this. No one is telling this story. And let's change the conversation a little bit from doing another documentary about pushing one dietary agenda. Mm-hmm. And let's go talk to every single person that is amazing and is creating extraordinary health, no matter what their belief system is, mm-hmm. No matter whether they're paleo or vegan or, athletes, celebrities, scientists, and so on and so forth. And this was towards the end of 2012. And so we ended up at the first biohacking conference ever at the beginning of 2013. And biohacking is the art of understanding your nervous system, understanding your biology, and trying to control it to a certain extent, knowing that everything in your environment, obviously including food, is affecting your biology. And it's affecting not only you right now, but it will affect, and this is scientifically proven, it will affect generations down the line if you have children. Wow. It's in your genes. It's a branch called epigenetics. It's the expression of your genes. And we carry stuff from our ancestors as well, up to like 14 generations or more, What
separates this documentary from the dozens and dozens of documentaries out there in the subject matter of food and health?
We have a non-discrimination kind of policy to our documentary. We didn't want to, we wanted to replace judgment with curiosity. So mm-hmm. Let's go talk to all these people who have created amazing health and transformed their lives in the US and sit down for deep conversations for an hour or two and listen to them, to what they have to say, to what they have found out about creating amazing health, no matter what they do, So, there's the biohackers, there's the paleo, there was a few vegan ultra athletes who are amazing people. And to realize that there's only one health really, and it's unique to you and it belongs to you. So it's, in a way, we wanted our documentary to be a piece of personal empowerment so that you're not looking for the magic bullets that's going to solve your life, but you're going to get excited about the adventure of discovering your own health, your own amazing health.
Right.
And knowing that there's so many options.
What did you learn from this experience? What did you and Juan learn from this experience? How much of it did it change both of your lives?
Oh, it completely revolutionized our lives, because
Wow.
we, in terms not only of the food that we eat, but the way we live. That I always say, if I'm only eating clean food, I'm not experiencing extraordinary health. Amazing health really is about food. It's about my daily rituals. It's about my choices, my habits, the quality of my sleep, and so much more,
Mm-hmm.
So it gave us that kind of amplified view on health.
Mm-hmm.
And also our emotional well-being and how present we are for everything we're experiencing on a daily basis, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's such an exciting time to talk about this and to be alive, because we're experiencing this scientific revolution, and we're getting every day more insight
Mm-hmm.
into, of course, I mean, the other documentaries like Food Inc. and some of the other ones that expose the food industry and how appalling some of the food industry processes are. But I think we're ready to okay, so we already know that. What's the solution?
Right.
What are the solutions? And our objective was really to kind of spark that curiosity in people.
What I noticed about this production is that it's not backed up by Columbia Pictures or Sony Picture Classics. This looks
No.
like it was done by you guys. How much did it cost you guys to do this documentary, and how much time did you spend doing it?
Yeah, it cost us about 300,000.
And did you have the
And
money, or did you have to fund it?
we had some of the money. We decided to just jump in it. We were like, no one is telling a story. You and I are the perfect, we're here and we're ready to tell this story. Let's just do it. And we started calling people and emailing everyone. And it was just a labor of love. And we kept on working. I had some photo shoots here and there, and Juan had some work there, and we had some savings and credit cards. And then we traveled the US for a year and a half.
Wow,
And
so
we
this really
flew.
was...
Yeah, it was a labor of love and sweat and absolute, commitment. There was nothing else going on in our lives. We were like, this is our mission. We're going to do this.
What's been the feedback on this documentary?
Well, what you said, it's kind of like it's a fresh look on all these amazing ideas and possibilities that are out there.
Mhm.
That's what people like. When we interviewed Marielle Hemingway, she said, here in Calabasas, she said that that's exactly what she liked. That that there was no judgment or
Or
we have the
agenda?
solution or agenda or anything. It was more like let's have a kind of a more whole picture of what extraordinary health looks like, and see that there are solutions, there are options, and kind of taking away the guilt, the
Right.
shame,
Before you and I started talking, we sort of connected on the fact that we're both Colombian. You're from Cali, Colombia. My parents are from Barranquilla, Colombia.
Yeah.
In my personal experience, it wasn't about maybe till about 4 or 5 years ago, I walked into a Costco, and as I'm at the counter, getting ready to pay, I see these really fat little kids. They were very obese, man. I mean, they were round. They were like, you almost wanted to laugh at them because they looked like they were injected with a hose of water. They were walking around like they were wobbling. And I just looked at them. I said, wow, these kids are pretty fat. And then I looked at the parents, and the parents were just as obese. And it started hitting me that the Latino community, unfortunately, and by the way, they were also buying pizza and hot dogs. And that's where the connection happened to me. And I said, wow. Unfortunately, because of poverty and because of low income, a lot of Latino families and a lot of minorities in this country have to eat processed foods. And therefore, they become obese. But when you become obese at the age of 10, you can only imagine what your lifespan is going to be. You're going to die early.
Yeah.
So, you start sort of focusing and reading a lot more literature and research on child obesity. Now, in Colombia, we were talking about the story of how, unfortunately, a lot of our families and our friends and a lot of the residents of our country don't eat well. So a documentary like this, it's in English, but it's not in Spanish. What are you guys doing to sort of educate Latin Americans and Latino families in the United States when they tell you that the number one thing, the reason they eat McDonald's is because it's cheap. It's $10 for the whole family, and everybody can eat. And it's a short-term goal, but they're affecting themselves long-term.
Spanish is one of the 4 first languages that the documentary is going to be subtitled in.
Awesome.
And hopefully that'll help. It's really unfortunate that we're so disconnected from the food chain, from the food cycles. We're hardly anyone. Who do you know in New York who grows food? There's very few people.
Only upstate New York.
Yeah.
So you got
there's
Manhattan,
a few rooftops,
right.
and
right.
Brooklyn or the Lower East Side and stuff like that. But those are very, very exceptional people. The same here in LA. You see so many front yards, and it's just grass when California is experiencing a drought. The most reasonable, the most sensible thing to do would be to grow some veggies. It's not that hard, but I'm hopeful that it's going more mainstream and there's more and more access today to organic vegetables and grass-fed meats and wild fish, and for people to understand that if you're not eating very, very sort of wild meats and organic vegetables, you're putting so many toxins and so much poison in your body, and for people to get out to nature. I wasn't doing that in New York. I was too consumed by the city also, and I wasn't getting out to nature enough. And,
right.
And that really helps as well.
Yeah, because Central Park doesn't just cut it. It doesn't cut it. You have to really get into the wild. What kind of diet are you on, or what kind of health lifestyle are you on at the moment?
I kind of take from the paleo diet, which is a diet that essentially a little bit of history. The big argument is that the agricultural revolution from 10,000 years ago did a big disservice to humanity.
Wow. Okay.
We had a super dynamic diet when we were hunter-gatherers. We would eat 20 different types of fish and 30 different reptiles and 50 types of birds and berries and all these amazing things that were available. And then we moved on to an agricultural lifestyle. And of course, it allowed for human populations to grow and cities to become places of trade and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. But the human diet just got completely reduced to some grains, occasionally some dairy, and some meat every now and then. And so we went from a super dynamic diet to a very limited and ultimately very inflammatory diet. There's a fascinating book that just came out by Dr. Stephen Gundry, and it's called The Plant Paradox. I totally recommend it if you want to read something that's mind-blowing. And it talks about lectins, and it talks about plants and how plants can't run for their life, the way fish or animals can. Right. So they develop defense
I'd freak out if I would see a plant just...
But it doesn't mean that plants can't create their own defense mechanisms. So plants create create toxins, they're called lectins. The most famous lectin is gluten.
Oh, okay.
And
so there goes the gluten-free, right.
Yeah, and gluten has taken the whole, gluten is the culprit. But what Dr. Gundry exposes is that there's lectin in so many vegetables, and there's so many inflammatory things that plants are just creating to protect themselves. So I essentially, in terms of food, I eat a lot of vegetables. Once or twice a week, I eat red meat, but either if it's beef or lamb, I make sure it's pastured, it's grass-fed. Mm-hmm. I will not eat any meat from a feedlot because it's horrible. I mean, imagine a cow that is living with another 10,000 cows on mud because there's no grass.
Right.
And they're being fed corn. And because they eat corn, they get sick. And so they're pumped with antibiotics and growth hormone and all sorts of other stuff because they've been, because they're sick. A cow is an animal that, evolutionary speaking, has been on Earth for thousands of years eating grass. And all of a sudden, it's being fed ice cream,
Oh, God. How
It's kind of
ridiculous.
like your Costco. It's kind of like your Costco story.
Yeah, no.
It's being fed. It's being fed junk food.
Yeah, and then
because
we're
it's cheaper.
eating that. And so we're eating the hormones, we're eating the toxins, we're eating the antibiotics, we're eating their corn, and the fact that they're stressed.
And you're eating all the pesticides and all the toxins that are in the corn as well, because we're just one ecosystem. So all that is transmitted from one animal to the other.
And they talk about the stress that these cows, chickens, porks, all the beef, all the meats,
totally.
all the protein that we're eating, because they're miserable, they're angry, they don't see the light of day. So in one of the segments called Biohacking, there was this gentleman that talked about high-fat diets.
Yeah.
This was really ridiculous, and I want you to kind of sort of clear the air for me. This guy said that he got a six-pack by eating a high-fat diet, sleeping only 5 hours of sleep instead of 8, and didn't work out for 2 years and consumed 4,000 calories.
I ate 4,000 calories a day for 2 years straight. I slept 5 hours or less per night, and I stopped working out. And I actually grew a six-pack.
Was he lying? Was he exaggerating? Or how did he manage to do that?
When you were talking about Colombia and you were saying, all these like fried things and all these fats and all, so you got to talk about quality of fats, right? Like, it's not the same to eat grass-fed butter and coconut oil and pasture and grass-fed lard. Eskimos, they survive on whale blubber and fat and so on and so forth. But what Dave Asprey and the Bulletproof Diet and other ketogenic diets do is essentially you mainly get energy in your body from two sources, either sugar or fat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you either consume, everything has a little bit of carbs, but if you cut the sugars out, your body can get into ketosis, into a ketogenic state. And that's your body is reaching for fat as fuel as opposed to carbohydrates, as opposed to sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do that, you enter this fat burning mode, which many people, it's a growing trend in the Bay Area and here in California and Austin and New York and other places. It's definitely not mainstream, I guess, but it is a very effective diet, and it's a diet that was created originally in the 20th century by doctors wanting to treat kids with epileptic disorders or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to learn about it, and it's a very high fat diet where 70% of your calories come from fat. But everything has fat, like an egg yolk, and so you would combine a ketogenic diet with intermittent fasting, which is eating in an 8-hour window. So, for example,
that's what I was applying. By the way, it was like a 14-hour fast. I would only eat between 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. And then after 8 p.m., I would go on this 14 fast diet, and then you start incorporating food into your body. But you can almost eat anything within that time frame. But if you keep it healthy, it's even better. And you start noticing this alertness. You start noticing this energy that comes to you. Dude, and I lost like 10 pounds within that month and a half that I did that. It's hard to maintain, but
fasting.
Wow, the effects
Fasting
are amazing.
Is you're giving your body a break. You're allowing room for cellular regeneration, and it's so good for you. I'm doing intermittent fasting. I have been doing it for like 3 weeks, and I don't do it all the time, but I kind of cycle it, and it feels really good. It's kind of like,
no, listen, Jesus Christ fasted, and there's so many benefits.
Why not experience this? Why not, get that curiosity and that just, let me try this, and see how it feels. And because for the first reaction is like, oh my God, I think I'm going to die if I don't eat for 3 days.
That's crazy. So, Tomás, if you had one piece of advice to incorporate in the lives of our listeners that are listening to this podcast right now, what would that be?
I think I would say, we are alive. We get to experience this awesome thing, which is being human. and we have this freedom, and we're only here for a little bit. Life goes by so fast, and there's only so much time. So I would say just displace all judgment and discrimination that you may have, and curiously enjoy this adventure of being alive and creating your own health, and eating delicious food that's going to make you feel amazing, and find like the daily kind of rituals that make you really happy. I mean, everything that kind of makes you feel turned on, like makes you feel alive. I would say that's the main.
Absolutely. Tomas Reyes directed this documentary with his co-director Juan Paredes. He also narrates it. The documentary is called Beyond Food. It's an exploration of health and personal empowerment. The documentary comes out on video on demand July 18th. Do yourselves a favor, folks. Go check out this documentary. It's done by two Latinos, one of them Colombian and Tomás.
Juan is also Colombian.
Oh my gosh, so from two Colombians. That is just...
he's Colombian-American. I'm Colombian.
Thank you so much for doing this documentary. If you guys want to know more about it, go to beyondfoodthemovie.com. It's also on Facebook. There is no excuse. You can always improve your health, your diet, and your whole being if you start eating better. And hopefully, Beyond Food, this documentary, will help you begin that process. Tomás, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Jack. Thank you. It was amazing. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to share this with everyone.
Before we talk to Claire Atkinson from the New York Post about Despacito's historic rise, here are some new songs you might want to add to your playlist this weekend. Quiero un beso, Grupo Extra, DJ Khalid.
Sonrisas. Quiero un beso que me devuelva la vida. Yeah, you could be someone special.
Miracles, Someone Special, Coldplay featuring Big Sean.
Rompe los niveles de la consola. Dígale al DJ que no me quite esta rola.
Rompe los niveles, Cabas featuring December Bueno.
Rumba nunca se acabe. Rompe los niveles de la consola. Dígale al DJ que no me quite esta rola.
Joining me now is a senior media reporter at the New York Post, Claire Atkinson. Claire, just read an article from you about Despacito on the New York Post. Does it blow your mind how much this song has taken off?
It really does, and I think the statistics in the New York Post story that I wrote today really kind of lays it out that this song is topping the charts after just kind of 6 months on the radar. That to me is amazing, and just to kind of give you some of those statistics, YouTube, Amazon, Apple, Spotify, you add all those together and you get 4.6 billion streams, which is a stunning amount of people out there clicking on that video. And I think the video is part of the magic of the song as well.
Now, when was the first time that you actually heard the song? Do you remember when you first heard it?
I actually read about it before I listened to it, sadly. But I'm a huge fan of Latin music. I'm actually English. Mm-hmm. But I love Latin culture, and I grew up with Julio Iglesias at home.
Of course.
And then Enrique when I first came to the States about 20 years ago. And so I do keep an eye on, what songs are out there. And just kind of as an aside today, I love Maluma, and I just heard from Sony ATV. They just signed global publishing rights for him. So I think, the success of Despacito will open the doors for many, many artists, and I hope that they get wider recognition in the mainstream market.
Now, as I was reading your article, it said that Universal Music kind of put this statement out because somehow, and here's where you can correct me if I'm wrong, YouTube makes their own statements. YouTube will put out a press release saying, such and such video is the most watched video in history. Universal Music decided to go in a different route. They decided to kind of stitch together various platforms. Am I correct in that?
Absolutely, and I think it's very interesting that YouTube crowned with the Wiz Khalifa song "See You Again" as the number one most listened to song, topping Gangnam Style, which had that position
I remember
for 5
that.
years. Yeah, and that's one of those like insanely compelling music videos. But I think people really connected with the Wiz song because, I think it talks about loss, and I guess, the video is not so amazing, but the song is all about something we can all connect with, and that's about losing someone. And so, the take I had on my story today in the New York Post was that, while YouTube can crown a song the most listened to, here we had a music label saying, well, actually, YouTube is just part of the picture here, and there are many, many other places that people stream and listen to music, and they wanted to kind of say, how about these other places, Spotify, Vivo, Apple Music, they all count, and let's count them all up and see just how big of a deal Despacito is. I don't think we'll have long even before Despacito tops the YouTube only charts. One of the reasons why this song keeps jumping up the charts is because there are a lot of remixes. We have like the dance version, the original version, the Justin
Right.
Bieber version. And I'm sure you watch YouTube videos, and when you come to the end of one, YouTube serves you up another. You don't just
Right.
end it.
It's
that's
autoplay.
It.
It's the whole thing about autoplay, right?
Exactly. And I think, that has kept people watching. They want to see another song by Luis Fonsi, or they want to see another Bieber song, and it keeps people there. So
I dislike the
streams.
feature. I dislike the feature of the autoplay because it doesn't give me the option to whether I should play it or not. It just plays it on its own, and then it counts it as a stat, as opposed to me deliberately looking for the song and then playing it. So,
Yes.
it's dubious the way kind of YouTube does it. Do you feel that what Universal Music is credible, or do you think there's some shade and some skepticism behind it?
Well, I guess I don't doubt that the numbers are credible, because I doubt that Universal Music would share them with the world. I wasn't able to get a breakdown of, how many are on Spotify and how many are on Apple Music. But one of the things that really blew me away is that if YouTube is racking up like close to 3 billion streams for these top songs, then if we're looking at 4.6 billion for the most streamed song, Despacito, then that is a lot of extra listening from other platforms.
Absolutely.
That's like around 1.8 billion additional streams from everybody else, which is not insignificant. So I think that's kind of worth bearing in mind.
Absolutely.
But I'd like to ask you, what do you love about the song?
Okay, well, I've had so many conversations about this. Initially, when the song hit in Spanish, it was just Luis Fonsi and Daddy Yankee. The song definitely did have a quality, a rhythm, a dance beat that was very catchy. And once that catchiness sort of sets into the groove of your body, of your mind, and you start moving left to right, it's very difficult to kind of remove it. So, I enjoyed it. I thought that within the Spanish language realm, I thought it was a hit song. And it was just another, great tune of the summer that I thought was going to be, was going to do well. Once he got there, that's when I started questioning whether Bieber wanted to do this for business purposes, to kind of up his profile within the Spanish language market, within the Latino market, which, is very powerful. And when all these stories, even in the New York Post, that I started seeing where he was at One Oak at the nightclub and they had asked him to sing the song and he kept on saying Doritos and burritos.
I know.
It was a major slap in the face for all the Latinos. It was a disrespect to the language. It was an insult. If you're going to have a number one song, at some point you're going to have to sing it somewhere. So
it's a great hook, but it is a complicated song if you don't speak Spanish to get the words out. I know a couple of words, but
right. But isn't it weird for you? Isn't it bizarre, Claire, that he's never sang it in public?
I think
at a late night show.
Didn't they throw glass plastic bottles at him on stage?
Well,
when
that
he
was a
refused to sing
concert.
it?
But if you see, but if you notice, he's never sang the song on a late night show, on a morning show, on the Today Show, on Good Morning America. Nowhere. There's never been a televised version of Justin Bieber singing the song. Now, Luis Fonsi Daddy Yankee have gone on The Voice on NBC to perform the song.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
There's a problem here. Why doesn't Bieber want to be a part of the televised version of the song? So ultimately, I think the intention was for him to just collaborate, visit and then get out. I don't think he's invested into the Latino community. I don't necessarily think that he's there for the long term. I did want to ask you this. Do you think that Anglo audiences would have liked Despacito enough to take it to number one, regardless of Bieber being on the remix? Just the original version of the song. Do you think really? Tell me why.
I do. Well, I just think, like you said, it's so insanely catchy. I think that Anglos are in love with Latin culture, and I think that it could have gone all the way. I mean, obviously Justin Bieber's involvement got it massive press and a lot more interest, but I think it's proven that in days gone by, you used to have to rely on the radio to really promote breakthrough artists, and without the radio guys, you couldn't do anything. But I think we're seeing like a new world where streamers can actually break artists and decide what gets put on the most popular playlists, and they have like a big growing influence on what becomes popular. So I do think this song could have made it on its own. And one interesting point about it is that when Justin Bieber got involved, they remixed it and he added some English words, which gave him like publishing rights on the song and a cut of the final.
Wow.
He gets to be credited as a songwriter on Despacito, and he takes, I think from memory, it was like 20-25% of the money from the song.
How much do you think he made then off of this?
Millions. I mean, a hit song can make at least $1 million and upwards. So,
holy cow! Yeah. What do you think makes Justin Bieber such a hit machine, especially in remixes?
That is a really good question.
Because I got to be honest with you, I don't necessarily think that he has the greatest melodic of voices. I think he has an average voice. Yeah. So, is it talent or is it fandom at this point?
I think it's producers. I think he just works with like the right people. I mean, he did the latest album with Skrillex, right? And I think he just hits on that sound at the moment that it's most popular, and he's in the mainstream with that kind of sound that is most popular at the time. And
modern and contemporary.
Yeah, but it is kind of a really amazing thing that, he held the record on YouTube once for Baby, and then Sorry is another huge hit. And here he is again participating in the biggest song in history. So he seems to have some good business knowledge and wide appeal.
And final question, do you think moving forward that Spanish music has a future with American audiences? Because here's the thing, is that there's many that think that this has been the entry point, sort of the gateway to allow Spanish language artists, musicians, to now become part of the American mainstream fabric on the Billboard charts. Is this a fluke, or do you think that the future of Spanish music is in good hands with the artists that are up and coming for Anglo audiences?
Absolutely. I mean, to me, that reggaeton beat that you get with so many Latin songs is just irresistible on the dance floor, and when you hear it, you want to move. And so, to me, like the language and the whether it's Spanish or English, it's just that beat that gets you. And I think Latin artists have kind of cottoned onto that, and they realize it's a big seller. And to me, it's like the early days of hip hop. We're seeing again how Spanish culture, and when we talk about will it become mainstream, well, the majority of Americans are minorities, and so I mean, to me, it is this song will represent an absolute flood of other hits, and I really hope that it does.
Pasito a pasito, suave suavecito, nos vamos pegando poquito. Do you know the words to it?
That's about the only bit I know.
Claire, senior media reporter for the New York Post, thank you so much for being on the Highly Relevant podcast.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Bye.
Take it easy. Thank you.
Adios.
Bye.
Pasito a pasito, suave suavecito, nos vamos pegando poquito a poquito. Cuando tú me besas con esa destreza, veo que eres malicia con delicadeza.
That's it for episode 41 of the Highly Relevant Podcast. I'd like to thank Tomas Reyes from Beyond Food and Claire Atkinson of the New York Post for passing by the show this week. And thank you guys for taking the time out to listen from your favorite streaming platform wherever you may be. If you like this US Latino podcast, please share it on your social media apps. Tell your friends all about it. And if you can, please have them subscribe to the show. It depends on you to get the word out. Hope you enjoy your weekend and stay connected with us via showbizcafe.com. See you next week on another episode of Highly